In episode 3, Key finds a FedEx package in the crypt that is addressed to John. And when they get back to John's place, there is a map with coordinates and an X on it, and also a tape recorder with his dad on it. And his dad is apologizing for the way things ended and telling him that it'll all be worth it, and hopefully one day they're listening to this in Costa Rica, but if not, he'll see him on the other side. When the tape ends, John just starts bawling his eyes out as Key consoles him. John is able to get it together, and the group spends the rest of the night talking about how they plan on spending their $400 million. The next day, they need to find out where those coordinates are, and since the hurricane took out the power on their side of the island, they head on over to the Kooks side of the island and sneak into a hotel. They end up using the internet, and thanks to Google Maps, they end up locating where the coordinates are and find out that it's about 900 feet deep to the bottom. And luckily, JJ knows just what they need to get down there, because the junkyard that his dad used to work for has a drone submarine that they can use. The one issue is that JJ's dad no longer works there, and they're going to have to quote-unquote borrow it. So they devise a plan where Kia is going to distract the security guard at the salvage yard while the group sneaks in. Kia is going to pretend that her tire is flat, and as he's fixing it, the group sneaks in, but the problem is that the door is locked to the place that's holding the sub. As they're trying to figure out how exactly they're to get around the lock, a dog shows up and starts barking wildly. The security guard hears the dog, but Key distracts him even more. She goes to let air out of the other tire to buy her group a little bit more time, but the security guard catches her and figures out what's going on. The group scatters, and the security guard goes to meet up with the dog where he's barking up to a boat. Security guard warns that who's ever up there, you better come down or I'm going to shoot, but JJ comes clean and says, "It's just me, man. My dad told me to get in here and get the blowtorch. I didn't want to do it, but if I don't get it, he's going to beat me again." And JJ puts on a really convincing act as he's kicked out. But this bought John B enough time to get into that building and borrow the drone. Now, the Kooks spent their day doing a beach cleanup where they passed the time by passing around vodka mixed with Crystal Light. Everybody's taking some, including Sarah's little sister Wheezy, and this is the first time she's ever drinking. At the cleanup, Topper and Sarah are acting how it was ridiculous the way John acted towards her, but Topper never comes clean that it was him who let her dad know that he was borrowing equipment. When Sarah and Wheezy get home, Wheezy is throwing up because she took way too much of that vodka, and she begs Sarah, please don't tell her dad, and Sarah says, "I won't, as long as you cover for me when I sneak out with Topper tonight." And as Sarah's leaving, she overhears an argument between her dad and her older brother Rafe. Her dad is reaming out Rafe because he was supposed to have generators ready for this exact moment, but he doesn't. And her dad is disappointed in Rafe and just thinks he's kind of being a loser who's just living off of the family money. Rafe finds this whole conversation annoying and reassures their dad that he will get the generators. As he goes to figure out how to do so, he passes by Sarah, says, "I told you never should have bought that bike with the generator money." He heads on over to the rougher side of the island and goes to a drug dealer where he gets some cocaine. Although he doesn't have the money to buy it, but tells the drug dealer, "I'll have the money back to you within 2 days. You know I can get rid of this stuff. I'll even give you my bike as collateral." The dealer says, "That's fine, but just know that you better have it back within 2 days, because if you screw me over, you're not just screwing me over, you're screwing over other people." And that night he takes the cocaine to the party that Sarah was sneaking out to go to with Topper. At that party, Sarah and Topper start fooling around, and she lets him know that she's ready to have sex, and as they're about to do so, he tells her that he loves her, and she pulls back and decides, maybe I'm not ready. And while she doesn't exactly say it was because he told her that he loves her, I just don't know if it was a coincidence. Topper's kind of pissed off as he heads downstairs and sees the group doing cocaine, and Rafe asks him if he wants to do a bump, and since he's not getting laid, he decides, what the hell, and he does his first bump of cocaine. That same night, a fishing vessel comes in and caught 2 dead bodies in their fishing nets. And they call the sheriff up and ask the sheriff if they know these 2 guys, and it was the 2 bad guys that were chasing the group through the marsh and who tore up John B's house. The next day, as the Pogues are testing out the drone, Pope makes mention that with this much slack, the wrong weather could take this thing all over the place. And that's unfortunate because the weather that day is not supposed to be good, so they're going to have to delay their dive. As the group goes their separate way, John B is at his house looking at the map, and Sarah shows up to set the record straight that she did not tell her dad about John B taking the equipment. And while she doesn't know who told her dad, it wasn't her. Pope and JJ, meanwhile, go to deliver groceries for Pope's dad on the rich side of the island. And one of the stops forces Pope to walk through a golf course that currently has Rafe and Topper playing on it. And Rafe spots Pope and says, "Hey, what's that Pogue doing on our side of the island?" Which is pretty obvious, he's delivering groceries. And initially Topper says, "Look, man, don't worry about it." But Rafe says, "Dude, they put a gun to your head." So both of them jump Pope pretty badly, taking a 9-iron to his back, and steal a 6-pack of beer and ruin all the groceries. When JJ meets up with Pope back at the boat, JJ is thrilled because he just made $100 in tips, but Pope is silent, and it doesn't take too long for JJ to realize he just got mugged. Pope lets him know exactly what happened, and JJ says, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" So the two head over to Topper's brand new, very expensive boat, and Pope swims on over to it and takes the plug out, basically sinking the thing. When Pope gets back to his own boat, he tells JJ, "We can never tell a soul we did this," because Pope is worried that if word gets out that he did it, he'll lose his scholarship. The two then head over to go meet up with Key and John, who are surfing, and Key tells John, "Hey, remember the time you kissed me?" He says, yeah, I do. She goes, did you tell JJ about that? He goes, well, I had to because, it's funny. You rejected me. She says, I didn't reject you. It was just the worst timing in the world. The next day, though, the group heads on out to try to find the merchant. And as the drone is sinking to the bottom, the weather is getting worse and worse and worse. Luckily, though, it doesn't take long after the drone does hit the bottom for them to find the merchant. Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.